Look how far we've come, all the things we've done. Did it all with love, beauty from the bottom up. All I want is you, you're my favorite view. But there's nothing new, girl, you made my heart beat.
And we are back.
We are back, bumble bitches.
Friday content.
Yes.
I have no idea what episode this is. We're going to be talking about some homeschooling today.
Okay.
I got a whole bunch of links that we can go over. But before we jump into that, I want to, real quick, what are some of the challenges that you think most parents face when having discussions about homeschool? I can tell you 3 right off the top of my head.
The first thing that comes to my mind is time management.
Okay.
Their own free time as a couple.
Okay.
And not knowing where to start.
Biggest one for me always comes down to socialization.
Yeah.
Every time homeschool gets brought up, people are like, well, I want my kids to be able to socialize. And if they get pulled out of school, they can't socialize with their friends. They're going to be stunted, right? We hear that shit constantly. Right. I hear the financial aspect is another one. You know, I need to work. We have dual income and barely make ends meet. We have to pay for daycare, yada, yada, yada. And then the other one is, I don't think I can teach my kid for 8 hours a day. People think that you have to homeschool for fucking all day long and don't realize how much time kids actually need to be homeschooled.
Right.
It just dawned on me that we didn't do any type of real intro conversation shit.
No, we didn't. Just jumped right into it.
We did. Disclaimer, we're not professionals. 2 people on the internet with opinions. If you like what we do, make sure that you share, like, and comment. Mm-hmm. Make sure that our stuff gets circulated. Stay-at-home mom, homeschooling, I think, is a big topic, so this should do well. If you're not a member of our Patreon, we highly recommend that you check out our Patreon. All right, guys, as you know, there was a TikTok scare. We lost the app for a whole 12 hours, and we have no idea what the future of the app looks like. And with that, we are very concerned about the loss of our following. We have amassed almost 3 million followers across that platform with all 4 of our accounts, and we are trying to push people to other social media platforms so that in the event that anything happens on one app, we have multiple other backup plans. If you want to make sure that you're not missing any content, we highly recommend that you check out our Patreon.
On Patreon, we have multiple tiers to choose from. Starting at $10, you begin to receive exclusive content. At $15 a month, you get access to our private Discord server where we've amassed an absolutely amazing community of supportive people. And beyond that, we have other tiers to check out, along with my 2 private women's group, if that's something you may be interested in.
Guys, on our $15 and higher tier, you have access to live recordings. We record all of our content 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week, live in front of our Patreon audience, where they are able to chat with us while we're recording. They get to see all the flirting, the outtakes, the hot topic conversations that never actually make it on the podcast, and it's really worth that aspect in itself. We have an After Dark where we sit down usually once a week and have a glass of bourbon, or in Peach's case, a glass of wine and a bowl of cheese, and we have a whole lot of fun conversations, karaoke in the Discord. We finish the lyrics. We literally just hang out, and you guys get to hang out with us. There is a host of other perks, including Zoom calls that are coming for the ultimate tier, so that if you guys are having problems, you can talk to us. It also gives you the heads up on private meet and greets, because when we travel, we try to meet up with people on our Discord on a regular basis. There's a whole slew of other perks that come through Patreon. I highly recommend that you check it out.
The best way to support what we are doing is to share the content. The second best way is to check out our Patreon. Thank you guys for being here.
I think that's the important stuff. I wrote a book. Book's out on Amazon.
We're also on other platforms. You guys should check those out.
We are. Yeah, good call on that one. Where are we at? Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
X.
TikTok
for now.
For now.
We don't know how long that's going to be a thing. I saw that it was a 30-day extension.
I saw 90.
Okay.
Either way, that gives us time to get people to go somewhere other than TikTok. Neptune, when Neptune gets released, I have high hopes for. There are things that I am concerned about with the app, but I do believe that when that gets dropped, we will be a present on that platform. It is an all-woman owned company or all-woman created thing. I know that matters to some people. It doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is the fucking app works and it does what it's supposed to do. But
there's not restrictions on our free speech or whatever.
Right. Or weird throttling with algorithms and things of that nature. But, that's neither here nor there. All right. So this article was written in September of 2024. I really just want to get into this, but I feel like I would be remiss if I don't ask you, is there anything else that you want to talk about before we get into this?
No, you're gung-ho, so let's go.
I feel like this is going to be a big conversation, so I'm kind of excited about it.
Okay.
This says homeschooling can, okay, before I get any further, this is from parents.com so that you guys can research this if you want. The title is called, Here's How Much It Costs to Homeschool Your Kids. So you can Google search this and read it for yourself if you want to. It says homeschooling can feel daunting, especially with the perception that you need to have loads of money to set aside to do it. So is homeschooling expensive? Well, that depends. The average cost of homeschooling ranges from $500 to $2,500 per student annually. But how much families spend on homeschooling varies widely. So before we move any further, when we first started talking about homeschooling, my sister Amy was like, I have all the books.
Yeah.
Everything that you guys would need with your kids are there. And then she mentioned Facebook groups. There are a lot of people that recycle the books that need to be gone around. So there's a whole lot of ways to save money in that aspect for a curriculum if you want to do it. I also think, I'll save that thought until later. Article then goes on to say there are different philosophies of homeschooling, and different ways of homeschooling besides expensive can mean different things for different families. When determining how much homeschooling may cost for your family, here are a few buckets in which most of your homeschooling expenses will fall and cost to expect. Curriculum. This is the one that we just touched on. We know that you can buy those books used. And I'm willing to bet that if you're a tech savvy person, you can find a download online for free if you just look for it.
There are many different homeschool curriculums to choose from, ranging anywhere between $50 to $600 or more per child. Different curriculums and resources offer different benefits, including free digital and printable downloads. You can also look into sharing a curriculum with other homeschooling families, especially if your kids are just a year or two apart. A major homeschooling expense for us is curriculum, says Rachel Sheridan, a homeschooling mom of 4. We spend a couple hundred a year on it for our oldest, but it's all by choice and it all gets used again for the next child in line. In all, we spent about $500 on curriculum purchased before the school year, which includes lesson plans and all books needed for all subjects.
Really, when you think about 52 weeks in a year, I don't know how long summer vacation, spring break, and winter break is. It's 2 months for summer, a week for spring break, and a week for winter, right?
2 weeks for winter break.
2 weeks. So we're looking at 8, 10, what?
Call it 3 months.
Okay, 3 months. So out of the other 9 months of the year, 4 weeks a month. So knowing that with the 3 months removed, we're looking at 36 weeks of school with $500 there, you put that into the 36 weeks, you're looking at about $14 a month to homeschool your kids. You break that down monthly to daily and you're at cents.
You did 36 weeks.
Right.
So that's $14 a week, not a month.
Right. Okay. $14 a week. Either way, you break that down daily.
Yeah.
You're still like what, $2 a day? I mean, it's nothing. I'm not very good at math. I was in a public school system. Had I been homeschooled, I probably would have had this shit figured out.
Right.
Anything on that? Anything else? No. Okay. The next part of the article said homeschooling pods. Participating in learning pods or homeschooling pods can also be a major expense. While it gives homeschooled children peers to learn with and the opportunity to learn things outside of their parents' expertise, it is usually the most significant cost for families who choose this route. Lisa Quattlebaum, wow, that's a long-ass last name.
Yes, it is.
Quattlebaum, a self-employed leadership consultant and homeschooling mom of 1, says, I have 1 child and she does a lot of interactive activities, face-to-face and virtually. These learning pods are great because the kids get to interact with each other. Okay, I didn't even think about the online learning aspect.
Right.
We're in Florida. My family's in Tennessee. The kids' cousins range from 16 to, I think, 8 right now. The youngest is 8, 7, somewhere in that range. I could be wrong.
Okay.
I'm guessing. But I never thought about the fact that we can FaceTime and they can play in FaceTime and do that kind of thing for school purposes. That never once crossed my mind. But that is another factor that should be talked about when talking about the social aspect with children.
Yeah.
It needs to be on FaceTime, not just like video game or phone calls, because you need to see the social cues, like the body language and things. But again, if you're trying to create learning pods and you get into a Facebook group where other moms are doing the same thing and they're local, you can either go do it publicly or you can jump on a Zoom call and everybody can work together.
Yep.
That's not going to cost you anything, because if the parents already have to do lessons, if you have 3 friends that are homeschooling that you met through a Facebook group, you do Monday, they do Tuesday, somebody does Wednesday, somebody else does Thursday. It's not hard to create a curriculum and work through that shit. And that comes into community. And that also speaks to why we fucking need a community so bad.
Right.
Okay, moving on. But pods can cost anywhere from $75 to $200 a week if you have multiple children participating. You sometimes get family discounts, but it ends up being as expensive as it would be to send your child to daycare or an after-school program, she adds. Maybe I don't understand what a pod is. A pod just sounds like a collective of people who are doing the same thing. Why would you have to pay for that?
Right.
Lauren Umloff, co-founder of the Dandelion Project. A dandelion. Every time. The facilitator of Wild Seeds Learning Community agrees. Wild Seeds, the in-person learning community that my children go to, is by far the greatest expense for this. I pay $700 a month for 2 kids. Okay, that's almost daycare rates, right? Well, for 2 kids, it's not even close to daycare rates if you're at a good
spending
daycare.
almost $2,000 a week on daycare when we had to do that.
Month.
A month, yeah. Sorry.
So, but that's for 2 kids. So she's at $350 a week. That's way different than $1,000 a week or a month. I mean, increasingly there has been a push to make homeschooling pods more accessible to family of all income groups. Wild Seeds Learning's community, for example, offers a sliding scale model which goes all the way down to 0.
Hey guys, little quick interruption. If you're enjoying the content, please leave a like. And also don't forget to comment. We enjoy interacting with you guys and hearing your opinions, and it helps the algorithm.
It's also free to do, and if you really want to help make sure the show continues to do, hit the subscribe button and share the content across your social medias. It costs you nothing, and it greatly helps the show.
Next part of this is called extra lessons. Not all parents are able to teach their children every subject or activity. They may need to get extra support for different task subjects or other interests such as painting, dancing, sports, and more. Sheridan says that for her, the biggest expense is music education. We do weekly piano and drum lessons for the kids. These end up costing about $2,500 per month.
It's a lot. Now, if you add in the custom pod shit where the lady's paying $700 for 2 kids and then the $2,500 on top of it, we're talking like mortgage payment money now, right? I mean, technically $2,500 a month is probably more than most people's mortgage payment. That's a lot of money to be dishing out for your kids.
Just for music lessons.
But it's optional, right? And if you can afford the $2,500 for music lessons and you don't see that as a wasted expense, then good for you. But I also think that there are other options for that as well.
Yeah.
You know, there's church groups that have band. Like you might be able to get your kid to work with somebody in a church for tutor lessons or something. There's got to be a cheaper way to do that.
There's a lot of self-taught people who learn from YouTube.
Right? You both could.
Yeah.
Mom and child could sit down and pull up a YouTube video on how to play the ukulele and
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
right. However, this is not to say that all activities need to be as expensive. Parents on a lower budget have also been able to provide a number of activities for their children. We occasionally pay for online classes based on the interests that the kids have, says Hannah Mack, co-founder of the Dandelion Project, facilitator of the Wild Weeds Learning Community, and Pennsylvania Homeschool Evaluator. We also pay for other kinds of lessons, such as horseback riding lessons or karate lessons. The maximum I have spent per month on these is $300 for all 3 kids combined. Horseback riding, for example, was quite expensive, Mac adds.
Well, I mean, that makes sense. You put your kids in any after-school program or any type of community thing, you have to pay for the time. Mm-hmm. But it's been a while since I've done any type of MMA or anything like that. But the last time I looked, those things were like $50 a month. So if you've got 3 kids, you're $150. Those kids should be doing stuff like that anyways, whether they're in school or not. We're huge advocates for that shit. And if your kids are into sports, they should be doing sports stuff. There's other things that you could be doing as well, though. Like you could create a foraging group. It would be really easy to use something like Google Lens or the Apple AI that's in the iPhone now to find edible plants in the state that you live in. And you guys could do like a 6-week course every Saturday where all the kids and parents meet up and go find edible plants in your area. Mm-hmm. And then part of the curriculum would be identifying those plants. Not only is this going to give them outside time, it's going to give them socialization time. It's going to give you socialization time where you get to do something with other adults.
Right.
It's going to teach them life lessons that they otherwise wouldn't be getting. And in the event that there's an emergency, they'll know what they can fucking eat in their local environment. Like that's a big deal. Mm-hmm. So that's all very much a thing. The next part of this article goes on to say gear, field trips, and activity supplies. For many homeschooling families, exploring the outdoors, field trips, activities, and independent reading make up the core of their education. While books can be borrowed from the library, and some libraries even have a special program for homeschoolers to rent books for longer, other expenses can still be substantial. Quattlebaum says, we went to a lot of museums, so that's about $30 each. Even if we can get in for free, not every engagement is free with entry, so there may be extra cost. I also spent about $50 on books, along with the ones we borrowed from the library. I pay on average between $200 and $300 a month for such activities. Umlauf says, gear such as bicycles and clothing are important expenses to consider too. Part of your learning philosophy is that kids need to be out in the world exploring, so gear is a big part of it. I would say that I spend maybe $250 per year per kid on basic all-weather clothing. Okay, so this is things that you're going to spend anyways.
Right.
Now, is there a write-off as like a homeschool situation? I don't know. You'd want to talk to an accountant or look into like QuickBooks or something to figure that out. But I would imagine if you're buying gear for your kids or you're doing field trips, there's got to be some sort of write-off that there has to be something. You just got to do the research there. This part of things is why I want to homeschool. Being able to take the kids to the Moat Marine,
Right.
or a cave or a waterfall,
a
theater, right? We could go see Wicked.
Right.
What did you learn today, kids? It's Glinda, not Galinda anymore. She changed her name, Dad. You know what I mean? Like something.
Right.
There's a reason for these kind of things. You get to interact with your kids and you get to teach them the way that you view things, and like you get to instill your values in them instead of them having the world forced down their throats.
Right.
And they get to experience life outside of a classroom. You can look at a shark in a book, but seeing one swim in an aquarium is a very different experience. You can learn about lions, but seeing one in a zoo is a very different experience. I'm willing to bet that if you live somewhere that has a place like Busch Gardens, you could take the kids to Busch Gardens for the day, and that would be considered a school day. Now, is that expensive? Absolutely, especially if you got a big family.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
Right.
Because you get to make memories and get to experience stuff and maybe get them a little toy, and that's something that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, they also house animals at Busch Gardens, so.
They do it at SeaWorld too.
Yeah.
You can buy backstage passes to SeaWorld.
And look at all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah. People think that SeaWorld is just a big aquarium. Mm-hmm. SeaWorld is so much more than that. Yeah. About 3/4 of SeaWorld's property is rehabilitation.
Oh, wow.
Most people don't know that. Yeah. And the parking lot and the little areas where they do the shows pays for all of the rehabilitation. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to that.
Can't wait until we can homeschool.
Me either.
Next part's called loss of income. For some families, homeschooling might mean that one parent needs to give up some or all of their income to support their child's education. For Quattlebaum, a single parent, this has been the largest expense. When I think about how I am able to homeschool her, it's because I am able to essentially support us working part-time or freelance, says Quattlebaum. If that were not an option, I don't know if homeschooling would have been an option, she adds. With many parents working from home, Mac suggests that giving up your job may not be necessary. The thing is that when you're homeschooling or unschooling, you are not tied to a bell schedule. Families can be really creative with their schedule and when work and when learning happens, says Mac.
I want to touch real quick before we read the tip right here that just because these people are doing it with a cost doesn't mean that you have to.
Right.
If you have an income from one parent that's high enough that the other person can quit their job and not have to pay for a daycare and all of that, you can make this work. Mm-hmm. There's so many resources out there that make this not expensive. These are people obviously who do okay for themselves and go out and do like side jobs or have a part-time job. I also want to touch on, Zach turned me on to a website called Rat Race Rebellion, where it's a work from home website. And you can go in there and fill out your little shit and like your skills and look for jobs and it's all remote. And if you can work remote, you don't need 8 hours with your kids a day.
Right.
And we're going to get into the time schedules too. There's a tip here that says for homeschooling families that have two working parents, have your kids do more independent activities during the day while you work. And outside of your work schedules, you will be able to do more of the family and experiential learning. The bottom line, homeschooling can be done on a budget just as well as it can be when you have a larger amount at your disposal. We are spending more, but we could be spending less, says Mac. We could choose not to do the in-person learning community or the extra classes that we are taking, but instead do more learning at home together as a family community. Homeschooling and unschooling can cost money, but it doesn't have to. I've never heard the phrase unschooling.
No.
Nope. Is that it? Do you know what that is? Is it just another term for homeschooling?
I mean, yes, it's interchangeable with homeschooling, but people use unschooling because they believe when you send your children to school, they are being turned into drones. So there is you Googled it, so I don't have to
No,
keep
I still
going.
want your opinion because I've never heard this before. So I would still like to hear what you have to say.
I just got derailed, so.
Unschooling is a homeschooling method that's child-centered and informal with no curriculum or lessons. It's also known as self-directed learning or natural learning. Okay. Unschooling is an educational philosophy that relies on a child's innate curiosity and desire to learn. I mean, I think that's how we're supposed to learn.
Right.
What a phrase though, unschooling.
Yeah.
Child-centered and informal with no curriculum or lessons. Okay, so little man could wake up and we could go, what do you want to learn today, bud? I want to learn about sharks. What do you want to learn about, princess? Dance. We spend a little bit of time on the internet learning about sharks and learning about dance. Create a little quiz for them to take and then go about our lives. Is that a possibility?
Well, they would still have to be able to pass the test by the state.
Writing, math, things like that.
But that's just our state. I don't know what that looks like in Massachusetts.
Right. This one is from readlion.com. It's titled, Harvard Study Finds Homeschoolers Become Healthy, Happy, Virtuous Adults. And this was posted on December 21st of 2021. A recent study by Harvard researchers has cast doubt on common misconceptions about homeschool students, particularly concerning their lives after graduation. The study was released amidst a time of exponential growth in homeschooling across the nation, because obviously this was happening during COVID.
Yep.
Researchers Brendan Case and Ling Chen explained their results in a Wall Street Journal opinion editorial titled, What Homeschoolers Are Doing Right. Their conclusions are especially ironic after the remarks of Elizabeth Bartlett, a Harvard Law School professor who called for greater restrictions on homeschooling in May 2020. Ms. Bartlett criticized homeschooling for both diminishing children's educational attainment and undermining their physical and mental health, the researchers wrote, noting that their own research suggested otherwise. The picture of the homeschooled student that emerges from the data doesn't resemble the socially awkward and ignorant stereotype to which Miss Bartlett and others appeal. Rather, homeschooled children generally develop into well-adjusted, responsible, and socially engaged young adults.
Happy, healthy, and virtuous. The study examined data from more than 12,000 children surveyed from 1999 to 2010. Parents want their kids to be well educated and professionally successful, but they also want them to be healthy, happy, and virtuous. By this broader measure of success, homeschooling has advantages. Among the students we examined, homeschoolers were 33% more likely to volunteer, 31% more forgiving, and 51% more likely to attend religious services in young adulthood than those who attended public school. Researchers also pointed out that the correlation between attending religious services regularly and having substantially lower risk of alcohol, drug abuse, depression, and suicide. In this way, they concluded homeschooling could have public health implications. This most recent study confirms previous findings by the National Home Education Research Institute. After examining 45 peer-reviewed studies, the institute concluded that homeschool graduates typically perform above average on measures of psychological, emotional, and social development. Homeschool students are regularly engaged in social and educational activities outside their homes and with people other than their nuclear family members, the institute explains on the website. They are commonly involved in activities such as field trips, scouting, 4-H, political drives, church ministry, sports teams, and community volunteer work.
I don't know what 4-H is.
I don't know what that is either.
Positive youth development and mentorship. Okay, so 4-H is a nonprofit organization. It's a U.S.-based network of youth organizations where mission is engaging youth to reach their fullest potential while advancing the field of youth development. Founded in 1902 in Ohio, looking to the future, the study's researchers also suggested that the difference between homeschoolers and their public school counterparts may have widened since 2010, the year that the study's follow-up ended. Recent studies by Jean Twenge, Jonathan Haidt, and others have documented huge spikes over the past decade in adolescent anxiety, depression, and school loneliness. That's a new phrase. Mm-hmm. A self-reported composite measure of social isolation at school. That's what that is, school loneliness. All tightly correlated with the increasing smartphone use. Fucking get me started on that. Given that homeschooling parents consistently rate concerns with school environments, including safety, drugs, or negative peer pressure, as the most important factor in their decision to teach their kids at home. We might expect these students will have suffered less from prevailing dysfunctions of their generation than public school peers. That's the end of the article. I want to touch on a lot of things in this last part of this.
Okay.
Adolescent anxiety, depression, and school loneliness, although I just learned the school loneliness term, bullying makes that school loneliness.
Yeah.
The need to fit in makes that school loneliness. The inability to have the new shiny thing that all of the friends may potentially have adds to that school loneliness, right? Like you have a whole lot of factors when you're developing and peer pressures that come along that increase all of that shit. And even though the popular kids at school may front like they're not depressed or unhappy or sad or lonely, when it comes down to it, most kids in school are unhappy as fuck.
Right.
I also think that, and I would like to find the article that I read yesterday about times of learning, and I will pull that up before we're done with this. But for the amount of time that kids spend in school, quote unquote, learning, they're not really learning. Their focus is not there. So in between, there's notes passing and shit talking and bullying and flicking and booger wiping and all the things that kids do because kids are assholes to each other that create problems. When your kid wakes up first thing in the morning and doesn't want to go to school, it's not because it's boring. They don't want to go to school because there's some factor in the school system that makes them not want to be there. Maybe it's not fun.
Right.
But if all of those kids were there to have fun and they enjoyed the people they were around, they would love to go to school. If you tell your kid we're going to a birthday party today and they're going to go see a bunch of kids, they're normally really excited about it. But if there's a kid there that they don't like or has picked on them, when they get there, their demeanor changes. It's just situational awareness of paying attention to your child. I want to touch on real quick the socialization that comes from having kids around parents versus kids around other kids. If you have well-spoken parents, you have kids that tend to be well-spoken.
Right.
Because the parents don't allow them to talk like morons. You stick your kid in a public school system and they just start that skibbity bullshit and they're using all that lingo. That lingo is not going to help them in the adult world. And that's the whole point of schooling. It's to get them to the point where they can be functional adults and be successful in life. Running around the what do they call it? Riz.
Yeah.
And all that stupid shit. You're not going to speak like that when you become an adult. All the lingo that we had in the 90s growing up, we don't talk like that. Because as you get into the professional world doesn't talk like that. And if you want to have something in life, you can't run around sounding like a fucking idiot using slang all the time.
Yeah.
So I would rather our kids have our vernacular, even though there are things that are not great with us. Like I cuss a lot. I would like to not have them cuss a lot. I would like to make sure that they don't say like and consistently. Those are things that I do and I am actually aware of. You're aware of it when you do it too. So it is things that we are trying to work on. We caught our kids starting to say like, and I don't know where that came from because we don't talk to them that way. When we do it on the podcast, it's because we're trying to find our words in the moment. And they were starting sentences with like,
Yeah.
No, we're going to speak with authority. If you have something you want to say, speak with authority.
You also need to figure out what you want to say before you ask me it.
Which is a huge thing too.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, so the homeschooling, this is from crowncounseling.com. There's not a date on this, but it has been fact checked. Homeschooling population is approximately 3.7 million students in the U.S. That's in 2024. They represent about 6.73% of all school-age children. Public school enrollment is around 49.4 million students across the United States. Academic performance, homeschooled students typically score 15 to 25% points higher than public school students on standardized test, which means parents have a much higher standard for their children than the school does. It also means that parents are able to teach their children the way that their children learn because they're the parents. There's not 9 other kids or 20 other kids or 30 other kids in the classroom that are creating distractions. SAT scores on average, homeschooled students score 1190 on the SAT compared to 1060 for the public school students. College graduation rates are about 67% of homeschool students versus 59% of public school students. High school graduation rates of public school students have a high school graduation rate of 91%, while the rate for homeschool students, which is approximately 66.7. So that's, I don't know why that would be a difference. Public school students have a higher high school graduation rate. Standardized test performance, over 78% of peer-reviewed studies indicate that homeschool students perform statistically significantly better than their public school counterparts. There's a whole bunch of these. I'm going to scroll down to the next part of the thing. Moving on, this is the chapter 3 part of this, educational structure and resources. Average daily learning time. This was a big part of what I wanted to talk about today. And though this is not the thing I read and I still have to find it, we'll get there. The structure of the school day differs significantly between public schools and homeschooling. Homeschool students typically spend about 3 to 5 hours per day on formal education, whereas public school students spend around 6 to 8 hours a day in school. The difference in structured learning time is notable. Homeschooling often allows for a more flexible schedule and can incorporate more informal learning opportunities throughout the day. Public schools, on the other hand, provide a more structured environment with set schedules for various subjects and activities. Student-to-teacher ratio is a big deal. Obviously, homeschooling settings often have a ratio that's 1-to-1 or 2-to-1. Public schools are a 16-to-1. This stark difference in individual attention can have profound implications for personalized learning, immediate feedback, and addressing individual student needs. The average cost of homeschooling ranges from $700 to $3,000 per child annually, which we read earlier is not the same numbers. Public school costs approximately $12,612 per year per student. While homeschooling appears to be significantly less expensive at first glance, it is important to note that public school costs include infrastructure, staff salaries, and various resources that homeschooling families might need to provide separately. Okay, so this goes on to parental education levels, which is kind of an important discussion. A lot of people think, well, I need to have a degree or I need to have a college education to homeschool my kids. You don't. You just need to be able to understand the curriculum to be able to teach your kids. But this goes on to say the educational background of those providing instruction is another important factor. About 64% of homeschooled parents hold a bachelor's degree or higher. 58% of public school teachers possess a master's degree or higher. The statistics show that both homeschooling parents and public school teachers tend to be well educated, with a slightly higher percentage of public school teachers holding an advanced degree. That wasn't common until the 1960s. Most people that taught schools back then were not anything other than a mom who had the capability to understand what they read and then implement it in school. There were people up into the 80s, because they were already hired on as a teacher, that didn't have fucking degrees in teaching. That became something new.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that means that kids are getting a better degree now than what they were getting then, but I do know that they have continuously decreased the difficulty of school learning to be more inclusive for kids who have a hard time learning. Class sizes have gotten bigger, personal attention has gotten smaller, time in the chair has become more. There's a whole lot of things that come into that. And I truly believe the 8-hour school day is made so that you have a babysitter so that you can pay taxes.
I think it also prepares children to be able to work 8-hour days for the government.
I mean, I agree with that. But the kids at 3, 5, 7, 10 years old shouldn't be trying to do that. Their brains aren't ready for that. Their attention spans aren't there. All right. So the next thing that we're going to pull up is from cnld.org. CNLD is
trusted neuropsychological and psychological testing, treatment, and therapy, executive function coaching, and educational advocacy and planning.
So what you guys don't get to hear or see if you're watching is me try to say neuropsychological like
3 times.
3 times. And I got it when I'm looking at you because I know what the word is supposed to sound like. But the moment I looked at it,
it don't look right.
So we're going to talk about attention spans a little bit from this website. And it says, how long should a child's attention span be? And this conversation speaks into the 8 hours that they're in school. Children are known for having short attention spans, but how short is too short? They're going to talk about ADHD a little bit. Is your child just an excited kid with a lot on his mind? Or is there something else contributing to the attention span? This guide explains how long a child's attention span should be, along with tips improving your child's focus. Average attention span by age group. 2 years old. Attention span is 4 to 6 minutes. 3 years, it becomes 6 to 8. 4 years is 8 to 12. Our kids are 5 to 6 years. Their attention span is 12 to 18 minutes.
Yeah, I can tell.
Anything over that, they lose interest.
They disengage, yeah.
And that's because they're looking for that new stimuli in their brain.
Yeah, I had a conversation with our son last night. We were laying in bed, and we were talking about over the weekend, he brought home like 10 pages of classwork to do. And we were like, what is this? Like, why was this not done in school? And we had a conversation last night, and he was like, Mommy, I just get so bored in conversations. I was like, I get that. He was like, it's hard for me to pay attention because I think of something cool and I want to do it. Or I see a pencil and it's a drumstick. I was like, I get it, buddy. We just have to try extra hard. And I'm actually glad we're having this conversation. I know that there are a lot of parents out there who are frustrated, not understanding why their child just can't focus.
Right. I think it's because most of us don't remember what it was like to be a kid.
Yeah.
We remember what it was like being a kid.
Yeah.
We got to play. We got spanked. The abuse, whatever.
Yeah.
Video games, whatever, bicycles. We remember that shit. Very rarely when we think about being a kid do we think about running behind the bathroom door after getting yelled at and being like,
Right.
because you can't be like that to your parents, right? So
Yeah.
like you have to reel that in. So like most people, and I'm sure there's people laughing because I know that everybody's done that shit
Yeah.
at least once.
Yeah.
But you don't remember what it was like to be sitting there thinking about something while your parents are talking to you and not knowing what disassociation is. And they'd be like, what did I just say? And you have no fucking idea because you were thinking about cherry blossoms.
Right.
Right. So like, or you were thinking about that new thing that you want to do or your bike. Why is my tire going flat? That's normal shit for kids. But we don't remember what that was like. And we're living our adult brains trying to relate to children who are still going through that developmental stage.
Yeah.
7 to 8 years old, that time frame goes from 12 to 18 to 16 to 24 minutes. So you're getting a little bit of a bump there. 9 to 10 years old is 20 to 30 minutes. 11 to 12 is 25 to 35. 13 to 15 is 30 to 40. 16 years old plus is 32 to 50 plus minutes. This goes on to say that, of course, every child is different. Some children may fall outside of that spectrum, but that should give you a reference point if your child is in school and cannot focus for more than 5 to 10 minutes. There may be an underlying factor worth uncovering. I know that this is going to go into ADHD, and before I get into any of that discussion, you need to keep in mind that children have a hyperactive imagination. It may not be ADHD. It may be that they're fucking bored and they don't care.
Right.
They're forced to go to school. Given the option, most kids would rather not. And if you were able to take that 8-hour school day and cram it into 3 hours and do it over the course of 8 hours, we're going to do 30 minutes learning and then take a break, or 15 minutes and 15 minutes, 15 minutes and 15 minutes. For every 15 minutes work, you get a 15-minute break. You can still get your learning in a way that is going to be productive for the children, or you can go from one subject to another based off of their attention span. If you have a 6-year-old and you know that they can only hold 15 minutes of attention, you're going to do reading for 15 minutes, math for 15 minutes, science for 15 minutes, reading for 15 minutes, math, science, and you're just going to bounce from those things and just come back to it. It will keep them engaged. They're not going to get too bored. That could be a way that you help. I don't think that everybody should just go, my kid has a short attention span, he's got ADHD, unless you've actually seen somebody that can diagnose your kid with ADHD.
Right.
The self-diagnosis shit is getting out of control, guys.
Yeah.
Is a short attention span a sign of ADHD? A short attention span could be a sign of ADHD, but it's not the official deciding factor. Children with ADHD struggle to focus, stay organized, and complete tasks from start to finish. They may get frustrated by tasks that require focus, or they may fidget throughout the day. Thus, you may want to get an ADHD screening if your child has a short attention span, but don't assume your child has ADHD just because of short attention span. Right? Okay. Does screen time impact attention span development? Without even reading this.
Right.
Yeah, we fucking know it does. That is general knowledge at this point, and we still stick kids in front of screens.
Yeah.
What were you about to say? Because you took a deep old breath.
Because we see it in adults now who can't engage in conversations for more than 10 minutes. Or they can't finish a 45-minute episode of a show.
Do you think that that's an attention span thing, or do you think that's a dopamine thing, or like a constant need for stimuli? Because if you're watching something for 45 minutes that you enjoy, that should be enough stimuli. If you're resorting to being on your phone or playing tic-tac-toe, or you're reading while watching TV, at that point, you're not really engaged. It's just background noise, and that's a very different thing. But do you think that the screens have fucked up the way that we look for stimuli with our brain?
Yeah. I can sit here and watch this show, or I can go on TikTok and see orcas in the wild in Alaska.
Yeah. This thing says that studies show that giving a child too much screen time has been found to negatively impact attention span and language, as well as cognitive development. It can also lead to extreme tantrums, mood swings, sleep disruptions, irritability, aggression, and many other issues. The American Academy of Pediatrics recommends avoiding screen time as much as possible until a child reaches 2 years old. From 2 to 5, a child should only have up to 1 hour of high-quality screen time, enriching TV shows, games, activities, etc. These recommendations may not align with all lifestyles, but this is the best approach to maximize attention spans and cognitive development. If you are struggling to manage your child's behavioral issues, reducing his or her screen time could boost the quality of life for your household. There's a link here. I'm going to open this so that I can maybe come back to it. Trips. Cut that. Tips to improve your child's attention span. Reducing screen time is just one of those, which may improve your child's attention span. If you can establish a consistent, predictable routine from day to day, your child will thrive in all areas. School, chores, family time, and mealtime all become muscle memory when there is a routine in place. This may make it easier to manage screen time and complete daily tasks without resistance. This will help a lot if you are homeschooling. Wake up at 7. Breakfast is at 7:30. You have 30 minutes to get your wits about you before we eat. After breakfast, 8 o'clock, we have math from 8 to 8:15. Reading from 8:15 to 8:30. And you structure your day. 11 o'clock, we have lunch, and then we're done with the day if you do the shit right. Mm-hmm. That routine, your kids will wake up and do the same thing every morning, and then once it's done, they can go and be feral if they want to go and be feral. As adults, we all thrive with a routine.
Yeah.
You wake up, you journal, get your coffee in you, meditate, go to the gym, go to work, whatever. If you do the same thing every day, you're more likely to do it because it becomes habitual. You don't think about it. You just get up and go do those things. Moving on, this says encourage your child to use his or her imagination, play outside, or use enriching activities that do not rely on screens. Figure out what your child is interested in and use that tool for growth. Oh my God, you mean I have to connect with my child and actually spend time and talk to them? Man, I don't know if I can do that. That's a lot. That means I have to put my phone down.
Right.
That means I get less screen time. That means I don't get to come home from work and relax and decompress. What about me? And I did that on purpose.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole lot of you out there who are going to hear that and be like, damn, you're right. Or you're going to get triggered. And just know that you're selfish. You shouldn't have had a kid if you're not willing to raise them and spend quality time with your child. If your child is struggling at school or at home, it may be time for a professional evaluation. One of our licensed blah, blah, blah. This is just an ad. But then it goes on to say that symptoms and struggles to determine if there is an underlying condition at work, a learning disability, ADHD, autism, and many other conditions may be contributing to a short attention span and subsequent frustrations. And there's an ad there again. All right, how to reduce screen time. This is not homeschooling shit, but I think this is a good one to read. It's short. Would you like to read this one so I can stand up and stretch?
Yeah, I can do that. So jumping into the bullet points, designated screen-free times for the family. Meal times, car rides, family nights, and bedtimes should be screen-free moments. Commit to this as a family. That means no phone for you either. If you can't figure out what to talk about, look up some fun conversation starters in advance or choose a board game everyone will love. Set an example for your children. If they see you on the phone all day long, they're going to mimic that behavior. Find other ways to entertain yourself in your spare time and encourage your children to do the same. Plan for outdoor activities. Something as simple as a nightly walk in the neighborhood or an hour of backyard playtime will do wonders for family bonding and your mental health. Participate in your child's screen time. If your child is playing games or interacting on social media, be a part of the process. You can also invite your child to play a game with you online or watch a funny video on your phone. This encourages open communication about social media, which could limit dangers later on. Create a weekly schedule with screen time allotted. This is the can't beat 'em, join 'em approach. Rather than forbidding screens completely, set specific times for online gaming or playing on the phone. This will tell your children exactly when they can use their screens, and it will eliminate the can I please conversations. Explore new hobbies together. This is the perfect opportunity to try something new as a family. Maybe you're a family that loves to paint rocks or do puzzles together on the dining table. Maybe you're a bowling family or a forts in the living room family.
We are a forts in the living room family.
Yes, we are. There is an endless world of possibilities waiting for you outside the screens.
Okay, so now that we've read a whole bunch of these things, I would like to just have an easy discussion for the next 10 or 15 minutes, and we'll wrap up.
Okay.
None of this is shaming parents who don't want to homeschool, right? If you guys don't want to homeschool, this episode's not for you, right? If you have ever contemplated the idea of homeschooling, there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of resources that could actually benefit you in terms into moving into that. Our kids are currently in a public school system.
Yes.
The goal for us is to get them homeschooled. And we have all these dreams and aspirations. I think our kids would fucking thrive. I think that having an 8-hour school day for a 6-year-old, knowing that they're not going to be able to focus for the full 8 hours, we could probably get their schooling done in less than 3 hours. I really wish that I could find that article, because there was one that just talked about the time frames that kids needed. Yep, I found it. Okay, fuck yeah. I found the article that I was wanting. And this was the thing that I wanted to touch on. And I know that I said we were going to we were just going to converse, but I'm excited about this. Okay, so here are the average time that they're recommending for pre-K kids: 20 minutes a day minimum, maximum 60 minutes of learning, like dedicated learning time. But you only do that 60 minutes, 3 to 5 minutes at a time. It's really not hard to spend 3 to 5 minutes over the course of a day to reach 60 minutes of learn time. Kindergarten, a minimum of 30 minutes a day, a maximum of 90 minutes, also 3 to 5 minutes. And sustained attention, 1 to 2 is 45 minutes a day, minimum 90 minutes, maximum 5 to 10 minutes at a time. 3 to 5, 60 minutes a day, 120 minutes a day, maximum 10 to 15 minutes. Here's where things get interesting. At 6 to 8 years old, class, it says class, not minutes per day, 15 minutes a day, totally 90 minutes a day for class. So you get 15-minute classes reaching 90 minutes at a minimum. At a max, 30 minutes at a time, 180 minutes a day, and you do one subject area per class. So this is what we were talking about a minute ago. If you got 15 minutes that you can give your kid, you do math. 15 minutes later, you go to reading. 15 minutes, you go to science, however you want to do that. 9 to 12 years old, class is 20 minutes, totaling 120 minutes a day minimum, or maximum class is 45 minutes, total of 270 minutes per day. Knowing that 45-minute maximum class, that's the longest you can go from age 9 to 12 for one subject, you're looking at what, 3 hours? 4 hours tops to get through the things that they need. And then the rest of that could be extracurricular fun learning shit.
Right.
And you can break that up throughout the day. You could literally do 2 classes before lunch, 2 classes after lunch, and let the kids do their thing. And if you've got multiple kids and you're having kids over, like, they can do a class and then go play. Go take an hour recess, come back inside. We're going to do another subject and we're going to have lunch. We're going to relax for 15, 20 minutes. We're going to do another hour, recess, another hour. Go skateboard. Go do whatever you want to do. We don't need 8-hour school days. Even at kids up to 12 years old, 270 minutes is not 8 hours.
No.
We don't need that much. I really do believe that it comes down to creating a daycare so that parents can work. I'm really glad that I found this chart. I'm going to save this image and post it to the Discord. Okay, Hotness Everdeen. Peaches Burkett, a.k.a. Mrs. Burkett, a.k.a. my wife. What do you think would be the most beneficial thing to our kids if we were to yank them out of school right now and homeschool them?
The one-on-one attention they would receive. And the understanding of the way they learn.
Yeah. We have 4 adults that are very active with helping the kids right now. You and I, Carrie, and their dad when they're at their dad's on the weekend. All of us get a very different version of the children when we are teaching them.
Yeah.
Little man responds best to me. I can sit down and bang out his homework faster than all 3 of you.
Yeah.
And it's because he doesn't want to look dumb. He wants to impress me and he wants to be a good man. He has this idea of who I am in his head as a man. So when we sit down and do shit, he's focused.
Yeah.
And when I know he stops his focus, I get on him a little bit and he reels him back in and we get it done. Princess does not do that. I can handle I can do the work with little man all day long. She frustrates the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But that's not my department. And as a dad, like if I was able to work full time and come home and help with the homeschooling and do the hard subjects with little man, it would work. It just comes down to being able to figure out how it works. She wants to do the arts. I truly believe she will be an artist of some degree as she grows up, whether it's dance or physical art or writing or whatever the case may be. She has that dream of beauty. Does that make sense? She wants to impress everyone with her talents.
Yes.
And I think that's where she's going to excel. But knowing our kids and knowing the way that they behave, that one-on-one time would be able to nurture that growth. We would be able to cultivate that mindset for them and give it to them in a way that is going to be most of their learning days. If he wants to be a geologist and wants to learn out about bugs and dirt, we have to get through math and writing first. Then we're going to go learn about dirt, bud. Let's go.
Yep.
I just think that one-on-one attention is not something that they will ever get in school. And that, I guess that falls into the unschooling, right? Like that, a new topic, new language. I didn't know that was a thing. But giving individualized, personalized learning off of the things that they want to learn about makes sense. Like that's like a no duh to me.
The kids get into the car and I hear things from other children in school that worries me.
Like what?
There's this little girl in our son's class. She has behavioral issues. And she is beginning to escalate with the things that she's saying. She's becoming more extreme with, it's not that I don't like you, now I want to kill you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And she's mean to everybody in the class. She bullies. She says things to hurt people's feelings on purpose. And from my understanding, because I've also spoken to the teacher about this, she's just becoming more disruptive in the class, becoming more disrespectful to the teacher. You know, monkey see, monkey do. Children are going to start following suit. And I don't want the kids exposed to that. I don't want them to see that behavior and think that that's okay. Well, she's able to get what she wants in class when she throws a temper tantrum. So
No,
I'm going to throw a temper tantrum and then the teacher's going to leave me alone because
it worked for her.
it worked, right?
Is this in our son's class?
Yeah.
That explains why his behavior's changed.
Yeah. So I think I want to control their social interactions just a little bit more for as long as I can.
Well, I mean, and we spoke on the social interactions earlier. That makes sense.
Yeah.
If you have a good environment where your kids can thrive and they are safe, why wouldn't you want them to be there?
Right.
If you can engage and have the conversations and teach them things and they get it the way that you explain it, they're going to thrive. You send them off to the world and let other people parent your children, you're not going to get a good result.
Right.
I worry about that.
Yeah, you know, and we had a conversation. I'm almost certain that you were in the car for this conversation where I was letting the children know, like, yeah, this was the night that we went to the reading thing at the school. I told the children that, you know how you come home and we're excited to see you and we spend time together and we read together, we watch movies and we shower you with kisses and hugs and I read to you at night. Not all children have that at home.
Right.
And I was trying to explain to them that not all families are the same. So, you know, that one girl who's acting out in class and is saying all these really awful things and hurting people's feelings and bullying people, I bet she doesn't go home to a happy environment. And like, I think they're kind of getting the idea of what I'm trying to say, but I think it's also flying over their heads.
Yeah, I think they understand it to a degree, but I don't think they understand the abuse aspect, which is good. 5 and 6, they don't need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they don't understand the full capacity of it. I do think that you do a good enough job explaining it to them from a place of they get showered with love and other kids probably don't. And that's probably as far as that needs to go.
Yeah.
I think you do a good job in that. So good mom
I
moment
appreciate
for the
that.
win.
Thank you. I want them to be, I mean, they're just now getting to the point, you know, 7 years old is when they start to, the brain gets to a point of recognizing that like consciousness starts happening. And I want them to be aware of other life experiences and to have compassion and not just frustration, or I want to help them understand a little bit more because it bothers our son. He doesn't understand why she's so mean to everybody.
Right.
And I actually had a pretty proud moment of him the other day. He told me that there was a new girl in class and she was getting picked on. And he was like, I'm not okay with that, mommy. I told him that they needed to stop. They started being mean to me, but I didn't like it that they were being mean to my new friend. Yeah.
It's a proud parent moment.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, wasn't prepared for that one. Thanks, babe.
Sorry.
That's he's doing the gentleman thing.
He is. He's doing the protector thing.
Which is wild to me because he's afraid of everything.
Yeah.
At least he's not afraid of people. Or at least kids his own age or being picked on, you know?
I think out of everything to be scared of in life, people become slaves to being scared of other people.
Yeah.
And I don't want I will hold our hand. I will hold our son's hand every single elevator we go into, knowing that he's able to stand up to humans the way that he does.
Yeah. Well, that's going to, I mean, I think eventually that's going to be problematic too, though.
Yeah.
Because he's going to end up getting berated by his friend group if he can't go up an elevator and granted, he's 6 and that's not something we do on a regular basis. So it's new for him, but
Right.
you know, it might be one of those things where we just go somewhere one day in an elevator and just go up and down the fucking elevator for a couple hours until he gets used to that movement. And, there's other things outside that I don't want to get into on the podcast that we need to get done so that we can know for definitively if these are the issues that we're having. But I don't know. We're an hour and 7 in before the cuts. Probably gonna be just under an hour because there was a whole lot of cuts that need to be made. But I would like to pee and wrap up.
Okay.
If you guys enjoyed this discussion and you're watching on YouTube, leave a comment. Let us know that you enjoyed this because finding articles to read, break down, and converse over is easy.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that we have to sit down and prepare a big, like, well, what do you think about this? Let's talk about this topic. We can just find something, pull the data, and then discuss it and give our viewpoints on it, which makes our job really easy. Love easy job.
Yeah.
And it's not draining like reading emails is, which we're about to do as soon as we wrap up and go live for Patreon.
Yeah.
Speaking of Patreon, guys, if you are not a member of our Patreon community and you have not checked it out yet, we highly recommend that you check that out. There are a lot of people on our Discord. It is a paid Discord. It's not a free thing, but people who are there because they want to grow and be better and they want a good community to be a part of. It keeps the trolls away. It's a good, solid environment. If you are looking for community and you want to learn about homesteading, we have homesteaders. If you want to learn about canning, we have canning. If you want to learn about whatever, there are people in there that do everything. There we have small groups, we have private groups. There's so much involved in the Discord. That's part of our $15 tier. I highly recommend that you look into that one. There's other higher tiers, but the $15 tier is our most popular. It gets you free live streams, not free. You're paying $15. That's a lie. It gets you live streams where you get a version of us that you otherwise wouldn't get. We recorded for an hour and 7 minutes. There's going to be at least 20 minutes cut. Oh, just spit. There's going to be at least 20 minutes of content cut out of this where we're cussing and cut this and fumbling. And normally when we record these episodes, we record them live in front of our Patreon community so that we can interact with them. And you guys will hear that in the chat from time to time. With the threat of TikTok going away, even though it just came back up this morning because today is the 20th, we can send you to Instagram. We can send you to Facebook or YouTube, and all of those things will get our short form content. YouTube will get full length content. Patreon gets all of our content. We have daily vlogs. We have live stream random conversations that last for 4 or 5 hours. Sometimes we did karaoke the other night. Like it's just a reason to hang out with us and be a part of an actual community. And it ensures that we, as the To Be Better podcast, can continue to employ people, continue to grow as a channel, and hopefully continue to benefit people who listen to what we do. So with that being said, guys, we want to thank you for being here. And remember, you are the author of your own life.
So grab a pen.
And we will see you on the next one.
Bye, guys.
All right.